and welcome to SEOcharity webinar today with Emina Demiri-Watson and Anton Schulker. Today we are going to talk about how to grow with LLMs responsibly and how to scale and care about what you do. And feel free to post your comments in the chat, participate, ask questions. We're happy to see you, where you're from, whatever is on your mind, post. Anton, I give the word to you. Tell us about the project, please.
Yeah, okay, guys, I'll do it very quickly because I do it every time. We've been doing this project, SEOcharity, for almost 3.5 years, and it's SEO, which is today part, and the charity part, which is this part, charity, donate if you can. We support small cats and dogs shelters in Ukraine. When I said small, it's not 5. It's usually like 30 plus. All these 5 altogether, they have 300 plus animals. You never know exact figure because as they pick up ill or throwing up any animals and try to save them. Some animals die, unfortunately. So it's a very dynamic things. So we're doing this for 3 years as SEOcharity. So we try to use trust. We have, hopefully we do have a trust in SEO community, and in order to bring your money to help those animals. Any charity need trust because you wouldn't really give your own money to somebody you don't know. So it's either you know people and you give them money and you trust this money goes to cats, not to, I don't know, not me drinking beer every night, or you give it to very huge big organizations. Hi Alexander. Big organization, and you expect that because it's so big and so reputable, it goes well, which is probably does, but they do have a lot of expenses on their own. We don't have any expenses. The only expense we pay is commission. So you give us the money, and Stripe takes a little bit of commission. Otherwise, no. Right now we're helping 5 shelters, 300 plus animals. Out of these 5, 4 is mainly cats, and 1 is mainly dogs. They are kind of, how should I say, family style. So animals not in a cages. Okay, dogs in these huge cages, but not real cages. But all cats, they just all over those flats because those shelters are in a private flats. Yeah, could you imagine someone living there and 50 cats, 40 cats, something like that. Okay, right now, in order to help animals, what we do, we spend about $2,000 a month. We receive about 1,000 right now, exactly 1,000, but it's fluctuating. $1,000 from regular donation, which I ask you if you can, if you want be a regular regular donor and donate $10. It's automatically goes to you from your card. $10 a month, maybe not a huge amount of money for you, but it makes a big difference between hungry cat and cat is fit, cat who being fit. And if you can, I'll send you a link later in the chat. This one is single donation. Any amount would be fantastic. So we need $2,000 right now. We spend, we get, here, there, anywhere. We got 1,000 from regular donations, and we got about 500 every month from occasional donations, give or take. And the difference, about 500 a month. It more or less cover when we do conference. We do 2 conferences a year. Next one will be September 25th, and we do have a sponsor. Sponsors give us some money, so we're more or less fine. But please do donate if you can. Okay, guys, I finished with charity part. Now it's SEO part.
Just a few words about Let's make it like this. About Emina. Emina is a very experienced SEO based in Brighton and working with Vixen Digital. It's one of the few marketing agencies that has the ISO 42001 accreditation, responsible AI accreditation. So it's very important. And no wonder that living in Brighton and being an SEO, Emina is also a speaker at SEO Brighton SEO conference, which is very famous all across the UK and not only here. And as Mina says, she's too curious to specialize, so she knows lots and lots of things. And I'm going to listen very carefully to what you will share today because the topic is kind of hard, but also very difficult to understand. So someone with so much knowledge and hands-on experience like you can help us understand what's going on and how we can use that responsibly.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Anton and Olesya. All right. Excellent. Does this work? Oh, no, I have to do it here. So thank you so much for having me. I'm going to be talking about a topic that's extremely close to my heart, which is around growing. Oh, look at that cat. Oh, Anton. I'm obsessed with animals. I have 2 cats in my house that I adore. They're my boys. I have 3 children, so I have 2 boys and my daughter. So, like, needless to say, I am super happy to support the cause. And it's not just the animal connection. I come from Croatia. I've seen war and I know what it does. So please, let's start off by saying, donate if you possibly can, because it really makes a massive difference. All right, let's go and talk about LLMs. So Olesya has given me a great intro, so I'm going to skip this a little bit. You can always catch me on LinkedIn. The thing that you might have not known is that I do love fishing, which is the only time my brain is quiet is probably when I'm doing fishing. I'm also a big fan of fantasy novels, and as I said, 2 boy cats and a daughter to look after as well. Right. Secondly, a very big thanks. I did this similar talk, version of it at Brighton SEO, where I shared who inspired me to start looking into LLMs. That list has now grown. I was updating this today, and honestly, and it's still growing. So these are all kind of some of the people that have been part of my journey into LLMs. So a massive, massive thanks to each and every one of them for supporting me and kind of helping me on this journey. I'm not going to go through all of them. You probably know most of them. Some of them are here. Woo-hoo! Thank you for coming. So yeah, thank you. Right. And finally, let's talk a little bit about experiments. So this is my first experiment that I did when ChatGPT got launched. And I went head to head with ChatGPT. We both wrote a blog on how LLMs are changing SEO. And to go with the blog, I wanted to create a picture. So I used DALL-E. And this is what it gave me, which is I don't know if I can swear, so I'm not going to, but it's a bloody nightmare, this picture, because it is so chauvinistic and so biased. I mean, no man stands in the ring like this, and no woman does. The problem is that the AI thinks that a woman is going to be standing in a ring like she's selling cars in the 70s. So you can see why this is really problematic. If you train an LLM model on the cesspool that is the internet, this is kind of the result, one of the results. So just a warning, this presentation is not going to be, hopefully it will be useful, but I'm not here to make you feel better. This is about thinking about the difficult questions around using LLMs. So don't blame me if you come out the other end feeling slightly depressed. Sorry. Right. So getting serious, the challenges. So everybody wants to scale, particularly when you have a tight budget, then you want to scale fast. And also as an agency, what we want to do is provide a great service to every client, no matter the size of the retainer. But can you do that? Can you actually scale SEO using AI responsibly? Now, I had no idea when I started this journey. I'm still exploring the area, so I'm not, I don't think anybody is an expert, particularly in LLMs and how quickly they change. But I wanted to find out. Now, this is what happens when you scale quickly. This is a piece that I wrote for Search Engine Land. And you see, the cat is very impressed with my Search Engine Land article. And basically, it's the result of using AI to create content at scale very quickly. And they absolutely got trashed by the helpful content update. It burned the domain. So this is what happens to a business that does it without thinking. But it's not just about the business impact. It's much worse. So what is the real impact on the world that we live in of using LLMs in SEO, but also in general using LLMs? So this is the depressing part. Get ready. Energy consumption, a massive one. This data is the up-to-date data from a study that was done by Cornell that's called How Hungry is AI? There's a link to it. This is a comparison between models of their energy consumption. And you can see that the worst ones are OpenAI O3 and DeepSeek, funnily enough. That are using more than 33 watts per hour. Yeah. And this is long queries. Now, the best one out of all of these is actually OpenAI GPT 4.1 Nano that uses less than 0.47. And surprisingly, you would think up to now, I always believed if you use a mini model, you're doing something better. But looking at this new data, actually, ChatGPT 4.0 Mini has, uses older GPUs, and it actually is using more than some of the bigger models. So it's not always that a mini model is going to be more sustainable. But let's look at what that actually means. If you use a high energy consumption model versus a low energy consumption model, it's the equivalent of a quick microwave reheat versus running your laptop for half an hour for a single long AI response. So a massive amount of wastage. But what if we make it brief? We don't need to do big queries. What about short ones? Well, a single brief query, a single brief ChatGPT 4.0 prompt uses just 0.43 watts per hour. So that sounds low, doesn't it? I mean, it's nothing. But what happens when you times it? The 700 million calls per day, which is the estimated number of calls for that model at the moment. Well, what you get is between 392 and 463 gigawatts per hour annually, which is the equivalent of powering 35 homes with electricity. And of course, we've always heard that training a large language model is expensive and not very good for the environment. But actually, the researchers have found that the most of the costs actually comes from the inference while you're using it. So 90% of the model's total life cycle energy use comes from inference. And of course, then we have the carbon emissions. So if you're using this is kind of a comparison that they did on models when it comes to carbon emissions. And the resource efficient ones are ChatGPT Nano, and then the two Llama models. Llama, never know how to pronounce that. Still don't. If anybody knows, please let me know. They use less than 0.3 grams per query. Now the big offenders are actually, again, DeepSeek, the one that was supposed to be more sustainable, actually isn't. That use more, and actually the R1 uses more than 14.0, which is absolutely crazy. Let's put this into perspective. The annual emissions for ChatGPT 4.0 are the equivalent of 30,000 gasoline powered cars, or 2,300 flights from Boston to London a year. So just so you know. Okay, let's talk about Gemini. Recently, Sundar said at Google I/O 2025 that there's been an explosion of tokens recently, from 9.7 trillion to 480 trillion tokens per month, which is, oh, nice, well done, woohoo, well done, Jack, which is 50 times the growth in the last 12 months. Now, I couldn't find any data to see how, what is the actual impact of Gemini and the other kind of models from Google. However, what I did find is a recent report by The Guardian and others that basically says that their emissions have gone 50% up in the last 5 years due to AI. So think about it. What we have here is, if we're thinking about that kind of growth and the inefficient models that we know that are inefficient, that is, if their usage grows and scales in the same way, we're actually adding 1.42 million of cars on the roads per year, which is, for me personally, a scary number. Water consumption. Oh, look. Yeah. Thank you, Andy. So ChatGPT 4.0, honestly, I'm never using that model again, is actually using the equivalent of the drinking needs of 1.2 million people, which is just absolutely amazing. It's crazy. And what all of this data has shown me is actually that, and we spoke about this at SEO Community when on Tuesday, that actually, unfortunately, the models are getting more sustainable, and they're getting more efficient. However, unfortunately, what is actually happening is that that's offset with the global use. More people are using it, so any efficiency gains are actually negated on the other side of the usage. And then there's other things like loss of trust and transparency. So sharing client organizational data. There's a link here. You can have a look at a jolly article about data breaches. And particularly now, so recently, in the New York Times versus the OpenAI case, what has happened is that New York Times has insisted that OpenAI preserves data indefinitely of all of the queries and the chat data. The reason why they've done that is because of the fact that they are worried that ChatGPT is actually, sitting in the corner burning files and prompts and all of the kind of the stuff that they have that could help New York Times and other publishers, they're not the only ones, to show that actually they're infringing on copyright by using their content. Which is, as somebody who studied journalism, I'm conflicted because I can understand where that's coming from in terms of copyrights. However, I also have an MA in development studies, and privacy and kind of user data and all of that side of things is very dear to me as well. So I still haven't decided where I kind of sit between those two interests. Right, ethical principles. We spoke about this before, avoidance of harm and bias. I think that's the most difficult one to spot. And it's the one that's really problematic, considering that it's all, I'm just, sorry, I'm just looking at pronunciation of llama. Apparently Robin said it's like the alpaca animal, so it is a llama. That one is the really difficult one to actually spot, and one that I myself care a lot about, but it's very tricky because it's already trained on data that intrinsically has its biases. Right, if you want to know more and make yourself feel miserable, but with good cause, what you need to do is go and check out the European Union AI Act. It has many, many more categories. All right. For me, scale, even on a budget, should be about two things. One of them is sustainable growth for the business. The other one is the responsibility angle. So making sure that you understand what all of this, how it all impacts the world that we live in. Before we dive into examples, now I'm going to just really quickly fly through this. Particularly, I left my Brighton SEO thing on it. It's because this bit is something that I delivered at Brighton SEO, and it basically gives you a bit of insight into key terminology that you need to know to understand some of the examples that I'm going to show. I will whiz through it, and I can always share my presentation. Because I know that some people have already heard this talk, and I'm always mindful that I don't want to be like repeating myself, but I know some of you weren't there, so just quickly. Right, temperature. So a temperature setting is a parameter that you can play around with on LLMs, and it impacts the variability and randomness of the response. So if you put it up, it's going to be more creative. If you put it down, it's going to be more factual. Let's look at an example. So Cornell University has a brilliant explainer, and I had to play around with it ages ago, actually. I need to have a look at it. I think they've added some top K and top P, top K and top P, yeah, which are different settings, but let's not talk about it. I digress. But what this basically does is if I put into it, the jaguar lives in and put the temperature at 0.2, the obvious answer is in the wild. Now, what happens when I put the temperature to 7? Well, the jaguar now lives in the sky. So it's a little bit more creative. Tokenization. Now, I really didn't want to get rid of this one because it has my amazing cat Leo. I know him as Leo. You know him as Cat. ChatGPT knows him as 3797. So tokens are basically numerical representation of words. However, to understand those words, what needs to happen is this other side of things. You probably heard about vector embeddings everywhere. That's a way of capturing the meaning of tokens by placing them into a multidimensional space. So, for example, I have my cat, Leo, there. I have pet, and I have two very interesting ones where it becomes a little bit more tricky. I have a jaguar, the cat, and I have a jaguar, the car. The word is completely the same. So how do you know which one which one you mean when you're putting it into Google, when you have a piece of content? How do LLMs understand what the content is about if they're not just matching keyword to keyword, because it's the same keyword? Now, one way of doing this, and I'm not saying LLMs use this, but this is something that you probably have heard, is cosine similarity. So a cosine similarity measures the similarity between two vectors by calculating the cosine angle between them. So what does that mean? It means that based on all of the words around it, the system understands whether you mean Jaguar the car or Jaguar the cat. So if I have a sentence that says Jaguar speed in the wild, because of speed, wild, and some of the other kind of words around this word Jaguar, the system will know that I'm talking about an animal. If it says Jaguar price 2024, again, price 2024, likely talking about a car. So if you're a bit confused about semantic relationship, that's exactly it. So we're not relying on exact word matches. What we're doing is relying on semantic relationships. All right. If you want to dig deeper, these are 4 pieces of content that I found really, really useful. And some of them are really difficult to understand. So while I don't think you should be overusing LLMs, if you're using Notebook LLM to understand these first 2, which you probably might need to unless you've been in the field for a very, very, very long time, I would recommend it. I always bring in my husband on the math side of things. So hopefully you have somebody to explain that bit because it's heavy. Right. Let's quickly look at some examples. This is one of my favorites. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to do 2 things. We wanted to understand a little bit more about the audience that one of our clients has. And obviously Reddit, a lot of audiences on there now, also a lot of SEOs now, like buggering up my data by spamming Reddit, but let's not talk about that. So we wanted to go into audience research, but we also wanted to understand, does our client actually serves those intents and those topics and these areas that the audience is talking about for this particular subreddit? So what we did is I developed a locally hosted script that connects to the API, pulls the first 100 comments, top comments from a subreddit, and then crunches that using KBird to get the keywords out, and then bird topic to cluster them into actual topics. So what do I do with that then? Well, first of all, we wanted to then, once we have these topics that are grouped, we wanted to see how does it match with what the client has on their website. So we combined those topics with topics that are really important to the client. And then we reversed it. So what we did is pulled the embeddings for their metadata because they are a website that is very much optimized. So we didn't have to like tokenize their whole content, which is the sustainability bit. I knew that metadata was optimized. We just did the metadata, and then we used bird topic to basically assign a cosine score to see, how many, this URL is similar, kind of falls into this topic and so forth. And that allows us to cluster. So what we did then is hooked it up to SEMrush using tags and hooked it up to Google Search Console. And then using Python, we plotted to see things like, for example, if a topic on a topic level has loads of volume, but we don't have a lot of coverage on URLs, that's an opportunity. Then we looked at, from the Reddit topics, if we have a lot of URLs already that are ranking for a topic that's really hot on Reddit, what do we do with that? What is the strategy that's coming out of that? So we decided that would be a very quick win for us to pull all of this amazing content into like a guide. Because not just to rank, by the way, because let's face it, like ultimate guides and stuff like that, those days are over. But it's also about understanding how you can use this data to make it easier on your client, because these are posts that are really valuable, that have been sitting there on the website forever, not used. And how can you use that content, not just for SEO, but also across other channels as well? Let me just have some water. All right. So for this particular examples, there's loads of learning. Three of the main ones is that there was a lot of manual checking and batching of running the data through the models to get it right. And it took a while. There was a lot of fine tuning. I spent quite a bit of time trying to ensure that bird topic is actually recognizing the right things. And let me tell you, it did not take 5 minutes. So when you see those amazing workflows from Nathan, that is like 500 things in them, and they say, oh, I did this in 2 minutes. Maybe, but it did not take me 5 minutes. It took me a while. And then my second quick example is an agent. I mean, everybody loves an agent, and I've shown this one before because it's so easy. This one is so easy to set up. This is a locally hosted, quick agent that works off of the browser use GitHub library and uses Chromium, and you can do loads of things with it. The way that we've been using it is for looking at Google Trends. So we have a client where Google Trends are really, really important to them. They need to be very reactive in writing. We know that even the unofficial Python library for Google Trends does not work. There's no API. So we created an agent. And actually, this helped save us quite a lot of time. So we run it 1 minute each day. We pay below £1 for it. And we've saved at least 30 minutes a day, which is brilliant. And we also send it to OpenAI, ChatGPT, to give us a few suggestions of the content that they might think about writing based on the trend that the agent has pet out. And this is all locally hosted as well. Right. So I did quite a bit of this testing and quite a bit of workflows, and I've been down the rabbit hole for the last 2 years. But all of this has a price. All of the testing that I did, particularly considering that I am not a coder, has a price. And let's face it, this is me, love a bit of vibe coding, hate the term, but I do like a good piece of code. I've always been interested in learning Python. I never wanted to do the hello world. What I wanted to do is stuff like the Reddit API hookup. However, that all has a price. So before you turn into me and you just go vibe coding, think about it. And if there is something that you can do that's already there, do that instead. So this is a little script that I created ages ago, 6 months ago, which seems ages, which is for fixing cannibalization. And it was a Colab notebook, and I messed around with it, and it took me a while and all of that stuff. Well, actually, now there's something out there that just does it for you. Recently, Screaming Frog, new version for new features. One of them is semantic similarity analysis. One of the things that you need to, so there's 4 new features. Don't just go in and just use them and run everything and hurt the environment and not do it responsibly. Think about how you're going to use them before you actually do it. So with the similarity analysis, for example, just do certain sections first, so blogs and products, not everything. With the cluster visualization tool, again, exclude. You don't need to like do the pagination and logins and archive pages and all of that. You don't need that data. You're just wasting resources. For semantic search, for example, which is a great feature as well, there's a link in. I didn't put the link. I'll send you a link to explain what all of them do. And now that we went through some of the kind of terminology, it might be easier to understand. With the semantic search, think about 10 or 20 key queries that you want to rank for and that you want to see how similar your content is in terms of semantical meaning to those keywords. Don't just go in there and spend 3 hours just wasting resources. And then finally, image generation. I mean, it hooks up to OpenAI and it can create images. And I will ask you, must you create images with AI? I mean, it's just like, don't do it. My advice is don't do it because it looks weird and it's just completely wasteful. Right, few other ones. Machine Learning for SEO, amazing course by Lazarina Stoy. AI for Marketing. Brittany Mueller just did her cohort recently. I was part of her recent cohort, and it's a brilliant course. A browser use library. There's a Chat GPT visibility tracker library that I haven't tested, but I've heard good things about. And then there's an automatic redirect mapping library on GitHub that's quite easy to set up and quite good. Okay, let's talk about a framework to start with. I'm just mindful of time.
Oh, it's okay. You have as much as you want.
Okay. Company level consideration. So not everybody will have a budget to cash out for an ISO, and also don't cash out for an ISO if you're just going to have it as a checklist exercise, because there's no point. How we did it is that it really informed us much wider than just me trying to figure out what to do. So it was a great experience for us. But even if you don't do an ISO, think about adding AI into your contract, having an AI policy. I mean, I usually have this do not train on it, but like now with everything that's happening with the data retention, it's a complete nightmare. So I don't know if that's going to be possible anymore to sort out your settings so that it deletes and it's that it doesn't use your data for training.
Was it a violation of GDPR? So we, as mentioned,
yeah, no, it should be.
So it's like a very no now from us with our clients. We can.
No, exactly. It shouldn't. It is a violation of GDPR. But when you're thinking about kind of even on a project level or when you're doing anything with LLMs, so there's basically 3 stages that I would recommend for you to think about. First of all, before you start, and this is the really tricky one and the important one, problem check. I have a problem with the problem check because as somebody who's super curious, my first instinct is to just jump in and to test it. And this idea that I had went from a little nugget idea into an elephant in a matter of 5 minutes. My workflow has ballooned in my head. As long as you're keeping it ballooned in your head and not actually on the LLM, that's fine. Because ideally, before you start using the LLMs, you need to know what the problem is. What are you trying to solve? What exactly is the goal there? That prevents you from wasting. Also ask around. Has somebody solved this? And Google it first. There's no point of reinventing the wheel. This is also a tricky one for me as well, because I want to learn how it's done. I don't want somebody just do it for me. I want to learn how it's done, but it does cost. And check if there's a simple solution, one that doesn't maybe require LLMs. Do a permission check. So this is back to your point, Alessia, around, can I use this data? Is it compliant? Is it allowed by our company policies? Would I be comfortable if this was made public? Am I putting sensitive data into AI? All of these things that you need to be thinking about. And then, only then, choose your model. Think about everything that I spoke about here today. So try and pick responsibly. There are ways of finding out, the lesser of two evils kind of thing, if you are going to use LLMs. So do your research. Phase 2, while you work. Quality control. I mean, I can't stress this enough. You need to test in small batches, not just for quality control, but also for accuracy of data. It's not just about the sustainability. If you're just running everything every time, in total, your data, how are you going to check? It's so much more difficult to QA on a massive data set. Obviously, check for hallucinations. I mean, they're rampant. I was doing a piece the other day. I don't know what the numbers are, but it's like more than 30% across all of the models of instances of hallucinations, which is just absolutely crazy. So don't trust everything. I mean, I would say don't trust anything, and always verify. LLMs will hallucinate, and they will give you a different output every time, and they will make up stuff. So making up pages, for example, I love it when they make it sound like there's a page on the website and it doesn't exist, or they give you some data that seems incredibly convincing. Oh, from this URL you go onto the URL. There's no such data there to be seen. They will want to please you, so be aware of that. Stay in control, so keep human judgment in the loop always. Really shy away from automating important decisions. What really puts my back up is using LLMs in recruitment. So a lot of recruitment companies now have this stage where it's all LLMs before you go to an interview or see a human being. It is so risky. I mean, it's not something that I would want anybody to be doing in that sector for that. Understand what the AI is doing, obviously, educate yourself, have a backup plan early while you're testing in batches. So when you're doing your batch testing, and if it's not giving you good results and it's just not working, give up on it. It's all right to give up on it before you spend hours and hours and hours and hours trying to, fit a round peg into a square hole. Avoid bias. Now, as I said, this is a tricky one. At the moment, what I do is just check for unfair representation, depending on what I'm working on. And I'll ask somebody else to look at my work, because obviously I have my own biases and I might miss something that somebody else will pick up. But I've been really trying, one of the rabbit holes that I do need to kind of go into is around training your own models, because if you train your own models, then you have a bit more control over this. But I'm not sure. I'm not an engineer, so perhaps that's not in my cards. And phase 3. So after you're done, and it's done in quotation marks because you're never done, really. You have to communicate. So don't tell people you're using AI. Don't hide it, and explain which parts are actually AI generated. Share how others can use your approach as well, which is great, because it compounds. If I'm speaking about how I'm doing it, then somebody else will use that approach and not spend 7 hours prompting. And document what worked and what didn't. And lastly, monitoring and improvements. So regularly check your outputs. Don't just let it set it up and let it fly. gather feedback continuously. This is what we do with our clients as well. If we're using LLMs, if they're doing content with LLMs, which some of them do, it's about making sure that that's done in the best way possible with a lot of first-party data and things like that. And we test different approaches. So I've tested doing it through the API, through a workflow. I've tested a custom GPT for one of the clients, and then we compare and talk to the client about their experience with the different methods and stuff. Regularly review and update your approach, and also be ready to switch. I was really super excited about using Magnus, which is an AI agent kind of platform. I used it a couple of times. I kind of thought, okay, let's test it. Went in, tested it, only then read their privacy. This is before we got the ISO and got the processes. Only then read their privacy policy a little bit better, managed to dig out some data on ownership, realized that they're in China. So I'm not using Manus anymore because it's really, from a data protection side of things, it's just a big no-no, really.
Isn't it just a wrap around Claude?
Yeah, it is a wraparound Claude. It is, but it goes like it's owned by a Chinese company. So I'm sure that there's some kind of level of storage that happens on the company level as well. Yeah, it's Sonnet, Claude Sonnet. All right, and let's talk a little bit about some results. Now these are quite old. I have to redo them really because these are targets for a 6 months. 6 months goal for one of our clients where we use quite a lot LLMs because they're a very small team, and our target was 50% increase in traffic. Our actual was 74%. This is before we all got slammed by AI overviews completely. So I'm sure that those results, traffic is not going to be my primary KPI no longer, because you're just not going to get it. But what will be, and what was in the first place, is conversions. So our target was 20% increase. The actual was 39.5, which was brilliant result. And we got an award for it. I know every agency is an award-winning agency. Now we can say that we're an award-winning agency, but I am proud of this one. It was the Digital Impact Award. We got 2. We got a bronze in SEO, best SEO campaign, and then we got a silver in best use of AI, which I thought was brilliant. And this was before I did some of the really cool stuff that I was excited about later on. So yeah, I have to say it's good. So it can be done. You can scale with LLMs responsibly, even on a low budget. Thank you. I mean, hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea. I don't know how long was I talking? I feel like I've been talking for like 3 hours now.
No, 45 minutes. It's okay. Thank you so much. May I just ask a few questions before we round up? You were talking about like doing this thing responsibly and all this kind of stuff, but that's you. Like, not all people are as profound as you. Not so many people do care. Most businesses, they only care about income, about money, and most of us, they work on these businesses for these businesses, and businesses are not very interested in doing anything really responsibly. They are only interested in how to get more money out of it, and we can see this all across. Even in big companies and in small companies, they can fire all the employees just because there's some LLM solution to pay less, or and so on and so forth. So how can one very simple person, very simple SEO, really have any impact on the whole story? Won't it place such a person somewhere outside without job and without anything else?
Okay, so I completely understand. It is really tricky. It's the same with anything kind of, for example, sustainability related. if I do my recycling, I'm doing my recycling, but there's, a lot of like bigger companies that are not doing their recycling and all that. I'm doing my bit. So you can always try and do your bit. If it's not at work, then in your private life, kind of. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I'm not being sanctimonious here. Like, I don't think and everybody needs to feel guilty about doing stuff for work with LLMs at scale and not thinking about these things. It's more about raising awareness, and you can raise awareness in your company as well. So yes, obviously, keeping your job might be your primary goal. And if you work for a company where you can't try and influence change, then it's a toss-up between, okay, am I financially okay to lose this job with a company that I don't agree with and that's not going to listen to me and it's just like this evil, like evil entity or whatever. If the answer is no and I can't afford that, then I'm not going to judge you for keeping your job and surviving, and if that means that you're going to be using LLMs not responsibly. What I'm trying to do is raise awareness so that those people who are in a position to make the change and who have companies who are not really opposed to it can take these little steps, either personally or on an organizational level. But some people won't be able to do that. So it all depends on your situation, on your personal situation. Hopefully that makes sense. I feel like I've gone like
Yeah, it's okay. It makes sense for me at least. I hope. And my second question was, you say verify facts, check the hallucinations. How do you do that? For example, now many companies and many people, they say we won't write any content because it gets stolen anyway by LLM companies. So there's no use to that. We don't have clients from there. We don't have any visibility. We have nothing in return. And producing good quality content, it costs quite a lot of money. And after the content writers have been eliminated by LLMs, it's even harder to do a very good quality content. So they don't do that. On the second aspect, Google says we are no longer going to be the 10 blue links company. So we are not going to link to the sources where you can verify this data, where you can find it. We'll have this AI mode in the future everywhere for everything. So you're always given only the AI output, which is a hallucination. They create the world of lies, and how do you check the information under these circumstances?
Okay, so there are citations even in AI mode. There's always citations. They will say where they got this from. The problem is that when it's not RAG, when it's not grounded in search, and like ChatGPT, if it's just training data, it's sometimes, not that there's hallucinations with RAG as well, but it's easier to check because you do have citations and you can go to that site and check whether what it's told you is actually correct.
And it's written by AI as well. And it's written by AI as well. Go to this link, go to that site, and it's written by AI.
Well, don't get me started. It's the infinite loop. So what happens to the digital ecosystem if you keep on churning AI dross and the system is training on AI? So LLMs, teaching LLMs on LLMs, it's terrible. Now, I don't think the future is so bad. I think what's going to happen is we already see it in regulation that, the wheels of government turn very slowly. But when it starts impacting people with deep pockets, and it will, they're going to have to put some regulations in. And we've seen it now with Google and DOJ, recent DOJ trials and stuff like that. It took ages, the monopoly has already kind of happened, and now only are we talking about it. But it will happen. It's the same thing with LLMs. And I think there's going to be some kind of deals and some kind of there's going to have to be some kind of incentive to content publishers to continue creating quality content. Now, how that looks like, I'm not sure. One of the things that will definitely happen on the kind of the chat GPT side of things, and is the commercialization models are going to have to change for these companies. So what you're going to have as a user definitely is like ads and stuff in your chat GPT. You'll be there, you'll put in a prompt, but before you get your answer, you're going to be looking at an ad for an iPhone, because at some point in your memory of your of your chat, you've mentioned the iPhone 15, and now you're looking at an ad for it, because while you're trying to prompt it on cats. So there's a lot of kind of ways of where this might go to monetize and to get the traffic, whether they're going to try and push it to the commercial side of things like ads, but I don't think let's just say I don't think SEO is dead. We might not be able to have the primary KPIs as traffic, but I think you can do a lot of things on the other side. So one of the things that I always say is, I'm the head of digital marketing. I am not an SEO for a reason. And that reason is because it's not the only channel out there. And also you have to be thinking about the bigger picture. And I think this is going to force a lot of people out of their silos, which is, it's a positive thing. I'm trying to find positive things, considering that it is a little bit SHIT.
Just it seems that, like you've mentioned, DOJ, Google doesn't seem to be bothered by that at all. So they are going to eliminate search at all. So by the time the DOJ takes any effect, they don't have any search anymore. So why would they?
Yeah, I think
would
they
be
will.
they can
AI
rename
mode, even AI mode, it does cite sources. The problem is that you can no longer put all of your eggs into the Google basket. We were talking, Arnaud always talks about cognitive load. Now, from a user perspective, when you look at AI mode, when you look at AI overviews, putting aside that it hallucinates and you shouldn't trust everything, if that experience did work, it's brilliant, because all of a sudden, rather than you going to 5 pages with AI mode, what you will get is a journey for you. The Googling is done for you. The cognitive load is really low. Users love that. The problem is that there is the other side, which is you no longer get the traffic. And what is brand visibility? It's much more difficult to get the same amount of brand visibility if there's no traffic, because of the fact that, I was talking to Sean on Search with Sean. I don't know if you know about the podcast, but I was saying how when I bought HubSpot, the reason why I bought HubSpot is because when I was in the buying mode, it was a no-brainer. The reason why it was a no-brainer is by then I read about 50, 100 blogs by HubSpot that were addressing my pain points. So I knew about the brand. I had brand recognition already. So when I was in the buying mode, I went to HubSpot through a branded search. Now, what happens when that same exposure doesn't happen, when those visits don't happen? You're just going to have to get it someplace else. So you're going to have to be thinking about other channels. It's going to be tougher, but it's not going to be impossible. I'm more concerned about, as a user, the cognitive load is really low. However, your world view is also very low. And this is the other kind of side of the personalization coin. If you're showing me only what you want me to see more than ever, we're talking about one screen rather than, at least now I can look through other results and pick what I'm going to go to and all of that stuff. But what if it's just one little worldview that's based on what you think you know about me? It's going to be like social media. It's going to be, a very closed up system of your own beliefs, which is just terrible. Yeah.
Good. Okay, on this wonderful and inspiring note.
I'm sorry. I told you it's I was going through my presentation earlier and I was thinking, oh my God, this is so depressing. Like, as I said, there are silver linings and we'll all be okay. But I do think people need to start thinking outside of their little silos. But I've been talking about that for my whole career. I've never been somebody who just signed up for one, all the eggs into that basket. So.
Okay. Thank you so much for speaking, Emina. Thank you, Anton, for organizing this event. Thank you for everyone who watched and who donated. You can do that anytime, not necessarily during the show. Every time, subscribe, share, everything matters. Every little detail. The butterfly effect exists. So whatever you do, it will have a positive impact. Thank you so much